Hello and welcome to today's Magnetic Muse episode. I'm your host, Jessica Ann, and I'm joined by co host Sunshine. If you've been following, you will know that over the last two episodes, we've been talking about sexual sovereignty. So, in episode one, we spoke about of this series, we spoke about how or the ways that women give away their sexual power and the way that we give away our authority and our power. Um, in in the second part of the episode, in episode two, we looked at which was episode 10. So that was part two. We looked at how we can reclaim it, how women can reclaim sexual power and sovereignty. And today we are completing this series by looking at how we can embody and live and operate in sexual sovereignty. So let's begin by talking about the pattern and what keeps us unconsciously recreating.
Yes. So yeah, we started out like you were saying, talking about what it looks like to give away that authority and the patterns that are kind of rooted in that, and how we can be feeling like we're sexually liberated, but actually living from a place where trauma is the guiding factor of our sexual decisions. So we talked a little bit about the patterning, and then today we move into, what it looks like to live from that place of sovereignty, and, knowing that, sexual authority is our right to choose, but sexual sovereignty is the ability to, direct the energy once the choice belongs to us again.
Mm. And
So
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and also, I guess, when you've moved through all of those patterns and you're no longer choosing from chemistry or intensity or the trauma, as you say, you're actually in a place of choosing from real pleasure and doing it very, very intentionally.
Yes, sexual sovereignty says, I belong to myself, and, my body isn't a bargaining tool or um, something that I need to exchange for what it is that I truly desire. And then, in that same breath, the desire and the sexual energy that I have is not dirty. And my pleasure is in performance.
Mm.
And, again, like, my sexuality isn't controlled by shame or fear or religion or what someone else wants outside of myself. So it's not just, about who gets access to our body. It's about who gets to define the meaning, direction, and the energetic use of our sexual life force.
Mm. And I think it can become very powerful when we spoke on or touched on this last time, when as a woman we can get attached to somebody when we release those chemicals. But I think there is an opportunity, and I haven't embodied this yet because this is where I'm going, this is where my next experience is. I have a deep desire for having one partner I can go deep with, and in the context of a committed partnership, a conscious partnership. But I also recognize that for me, sexual sovereignty could also mean consciously choosing to engage with somebody in a very conscious way sexually without having to have that rigidity or definition around the relationship. So, what's your thoughts on that, or how is that showing up for you in life?
Yeah, I think for me, where I'm at right now is asking myself, are the interactions that I'm having with my partners something that is expanding me, or is it draining my life force? You
Mm,
know? I think sometimes we like really mystify this idea of tantric sex and, all of the, warm fuzzies and things like that. I mean, but for me, a lot of times the intention that I'm setting when I'm going into those encounters is, let this be a healing experience for us. Let it bring evolution and expansion. And, I'm thinking about, wealth and health and trips all over the country. And, like, that's what's on my mind. But a lot of times, I'll wake up the next day to being triggered by this person, you know what I'm saying? But I'm learning to notice that as the gift, because if I'm asking for healing and evolution and expansion, I need to know where the healing and evolution and expansion can take place. And a lot of times, that's still being communicated to me through my triggers.
Of
And
course.
so, like I recently had an experience where I was having a conversation the next day, and I just felt this heat in my chest, in my jaw area, like under my ears, like this burning, sensation that I get when I'm uncomfortable with something. And normally I would like spin out or, start messaging and over explaining and trying to like argue my point. And, with this particular connection, the trigger point is being prioritized. Like I have this obsession with I need to be prioritized. And I had, really been taking it out on this person in this relationship. And it's so funny because this week I noticed that he has a fifth line. And, we were having that conversation about how fifth lines kind of encounter people wanting them to save them and resolve their issues and fix things and, all of those things or whatever. And so it's like we had this beautiful, intimate experience. And then the next day I'm triggered and I feel this burning sensation. And for, one of the first times I was able to stop myself and not just ask myself, how am I feeling? What's going on in my body? But once I noticed that, I was able to like affirm myself. I placed my hand, on my chest and I was like, you're worthy of being chose. There's no need to be ashamed of this need and so on and so forth. And I felt tears come up. And I had been having like a hard time of like creating a container and having capacity for myself when I feel like crying because like, I don't want to be crying over no man about no relationship, da 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 da, like, or I'll feel it a little bit and then I'll cut it out because I'm like, you need to move on. But I was able to just sit in that moment with myself and ask myself, what part is, feeling sad? And can you tell me the origin story, like give me a image or some kind of inkling of like what this actually is, because it's got to be bigger than just this moment that I'm having with him about playing dates. Like this can't be what's making me anxious like this. And I got this image of me as a child and I was able to really trace things back and see, that I felt like I had, parents that were always present and um like physically present and available, but maybe not emotionally present. And I felt supported, but I didn't feel pursued. Like my parents were there if there was a crisis or a need or something to that nature, but I didn't feel like specifically my father in my teenage years felt like it was important for him to spend deliberate, intentional, consistent one-on-one time with me. And so here I am, you know, the night before I'm using tantra to manifest healing. And then the next day I'm triggered, but I'm able to notice, hey, this is the gift. Take this and transmute this into evolution for yourself. And so now I'm able to see all of these months that I've been like pressed about being prioritized. It was never about my partner. It's about a prioritization of myself and being able to notice where else in my life there's room for me to be prioritized in my other connections, in my friendships, in my family, in my communities that I'm, a part of, instead of feeling like, oh, I need this one person to treat me a certain way and show up in a certain way in order for me to feel like now I'm being prioritized. So I know that was like a long roundabout way of getting to like where I'm at, but I just wanna demystify this idea of tantra because, it's not like just magical manifesting, "Oh, I said I wanna be wealthy, and then I woke up the next day and there was $1,000 in my bank from nowhere," which that can happen, but that's just not always what it looks like, and when you're setting your intentions, you have to be open to whatever outcome comes with that.
Okay, so you're talking about infinite intentions and using Tantra as a form of sex magic to be able to create transmutation or transformation in your life. I would like to dig a little bit and unpack what I heard
Okay,
because I'm not understanding everything here. So let me
okay.
see. Let me see. So can is it what is the purpose of let me reframe this. Are you saying, and I just because I want clarity, are you saying I heard you say that you went through a journey of working with your inner parts and yourself to reclaim that need to be externally validated or pursued or chosen so that your energy could shift without having to force that control and that need onto that person. That's what I heard. But I also, there was a part of me that also felt really uncomfortable because what I felt uncomfortable about was what is the nature of your relationship with this guy? Just that's the first thing I just want to know.
I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that, but I'm in a committed long-term relationship with this person.
Okay. And so is
When I
he
say committed, I don't mean exclusive because our relationship is committed, but it's not exclusive. That's not something that I desire.
okay? And what would prioritizing you look like?
So in this specific instance, what it would look like to me is more intentionality around planning dates and coming together outside of, convenience or, just cuddle sessions, even if it's because it's not always sex, it's just sometimes just like presence with one another or whatever, but it's usually like overnight because of, shifts and scheduling and things like that or whatever. But just more intentionality around quality time together.
Mm. And so there's so many things going through my mind. So partly, but I'm going to chunk this down, and even if we don't put this on air, I don't mind because I need to I need to go through this. And if we do, it's a great session anyway. It's a
Yeah,
great
I've literally been excited about sharing this the whole time. So when you came off with that question, I was like, yes, I get to share.
yeah. Right. So you have a setup. You're not exclusive because you've chosen not to, but you want him to initiate and lead from that position. Do you think that the work you've done internally is going to shift that external because you're not controlling or putting expectation onto him? Firstly, let's start with that.
Well, yeah, in real time it did because I was able to, instead of coming to him as the wounded child, like I had been doing before, saying, "Oh, you need to prioritize me. I don't feel like, you're showing up the way yada 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 that I want you to or whatever." I was able to say, "Hey, I want some clarity. Like, are you as interested in having this intentional time as I am? Because this is a need that I have. And I'm wondering if you have the capacity to meet that need, or I need to be looking elsewhere, as opposed to the protesting and begging that I would normally do, in other spaces or,
Mhm.
in previous conversations that we had. Because it's not like he's never prioritized me. We never go on any dates or anything like that. For me, it's more about like frequency. And I want it to be consistent and like, um, even if it's like just from the concept of like having a set date night, like I want something concrete like that. And so but that's something that you have to express as a need, not something that you just need your partner to magically know about you. And saying over and over again, "You're not prioritizing me," doesn't really tell them what the prioritization looks like and how they can show up for you differently. And so now that I've communicated that, he's like, "Okay, well, I have a plan. I'm gonna do that so that I can be more attentive to this need that you presented to me."
Perfect. So now we've actually clarified and really got to the clarity here. So what this is really about, this is about how as a feminine woman in her power, in her magnetism, is able to communicate a need and a boundary. It doesn't have to be like, I love that phrase. I don't know who said it, but your boundary need not be an electric fence that keeps people out, but shows you that, I'm here to be treated. I, this, I can't remember the actual phrase, but it announces who you are without this anger around it. So,
Yes.
and I will be treated accordingly, right? So, what this is really about, this is about a woman who is in her feminine power and in her sovereignty, and this is a true magnetic muse moment because this is what a magnetic muse woman does. She is able to look within and separate the woundedness from the need, and go through her own internal experience. And from that space of clarity and peace and frequency on a nervous system level, you can then communicate clearly, and then the masculine is able to respond and show up. And he said, I've got a plan. So this is what I'm seeing is healthy polarity. So this is, I think, really the crux of this conversation. So it's not that women um, look within alone and then, because this is what I thought I was hearing, right? Hear what
Yeah.
I thought, and what I misinterpreted was,
No, I just hadn't finished the
okay.
story, the piece that you were but I don't mean to cut you off.
No, no,
It's
no,
'cause,
it's fine.
like,
I love
I
it.
know what you're about to say, but I want you to still say it.
Because what I thought you were saying was, I need to sort of dim my own need because I'm in my journey of transmutation. And it's not that you wouldn't, that like as some sort of distorted form of self-empowerment. That's what I was here, like how I was getting. Yeah. So that is clear. That is not that. It's a very powerful form of actually um integrating shadow and allowing then for healthy communication in order to create an outcome and in polarity. Yeah.
Yes. And
Okay.
what you're describing is actually what came first, like, that was a different phase that I was in of, like, knowing that, "Hey, this is coming from some kind of wounding, and I need to address it." And so what I would do is try to just address it fully internally and never talk to the other person about what was going on with me, what I experienced, what triggered me, what I want, what I need, how I feel, because I'm like, "Oh, I need to handle this all myself. This has nothing to do with him. I'm the wounded, broken person, da 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 da." And now I'm in a space where I can say, "Hey, no, um, my needs are valid." And they're important. It's okay for me to have needs. And yes, I want to be internally resourced as much as possible, but there are still external, like needs that we have and things that need to come from outside of us to us from like a interpersonal standpoint. And it's okay for me to ask for what it is that I need. And it's also okay for the person not to be able to meet my needs. But it's important that I communicate those needs and be flexible about how those needs are met instead of just assuming, oh, I'm going to make an internal shift in myself and then everything is going to magically change outside of me, which there's an element of truth to that. But there's still the grown up responsibility of communicating what your needs are and talking to your partner about what you're working through, because just as much as I was, triggered by the conversation that we have, he is working through his own attachment wounding as well. And me bringing up what it is that I need
Mm.
gave him an opportunity to elevate and rise in the way that he thinks and behaves and moves and like really be like, okay, like this is a problem. I need to come up with some type of strategy to move forward in this connection where otherwise he wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't made my claim.
And this is again, and a bit because there's two things I want to now point out to the listener and give a comparison. This is an example of a conscious partnership. this is an example of a compatible conscious partnership. They have a clear arrangement. It's not about exclusivity, but we have consciously chosen to to share each other in this way. Great. He's also working on his attachment. He's fluent in a language and he does the actual work. So when there's a need is expressed, change happens. This is an example of a healthy masculine man. My example, and this is what and the third thing I wanted to say is that this is an example of where someone, the king in him can rise. So you're creating that space as a powerful feminine woman in her power. This is what feminine energy is. This is what inspiring devotion is, and you're able to speak to the king in him, and he's able to rise. Now, with me and my ghost of lovers past, the difference was I expressed my needs, and he couldn't meet them. And instead of walking away the first time and accepting that, that's where my wounding came in because I then negotiated. We spoke about that in the first episode, where what happens is if you're leading not from your sovereignty, when you set that first boundary or that need and it's not met, you're training someone how to teach you and how much you will tolerate. And actually what happened was I got less and less and less from him because what I was tolerating, he he rather than rising, he showed me through his actions so clearly that he didn't have the capacity and he wasn't willing to meet my needs. He wanted the physical and he was great at the physical, but everything else he could not. And so when I asked for what I needed, which was, it was emotional connection, it was commitment, it was even definition actually of our relationship. And again, I did pursue it. I did pursue that. Like I could have let things unfold, but actually the truth is that was never going to happen between us, honestly. Like going through that initiation, I got to see where he was at. So I did ask for my need to be met. My mistake was that I didn't walk away. And I urge women to understand that when you don't walk away, well, you can experiment for yourself. When somebody has shown you very clearly what their capacity is, you're gonna get less and less and less from that person because the respect, because you're not valuing yourself, the respect becomes less and less for you. So whereas the man rose into his king in this example, for me, the man um showed me that he wasn't capable of doing that. And also, yes, there was a lot of healing on my side to do. So I think that's wrapped that up kind of did that make sense?
Absolutely. And I mean, as far as like leaving connections is concerned, I would say yes. If the connection isn't honoring you and you feel led to leave, that is an honorable, choice to make. And um there's also value in what I would call writing out the desire cycle.
Hmm.
So if I don't truly feel in my heart that I'm done with this person and I've learned the lesson I need to learn and I can move on, and this is me speaking from hindsight, I end up literally recreating the same
Oh,
experience
yeah.
with someone else so that I can learn and integrate whatever lesson that it is. And so it's like for a long time, I would point my finger at this person. I would, oh, it's them, it's them, it's them, it's them, it's them. And it may have, very well been them as well. But at the same time, if I don't address the parts of it that are me, I'm just gonna recreate that so I could walk away from the relationship all I
Oh,
want
yeah.
to. My cells, my aura is gonna like, let's set this up again so that you can learn this lesson. And like what you were saying about like him getting worse and worse and worse, like that, mirrors for me like all of my lessons in my life where if I'm not learning the lesson, it intensifies and intensifies and it'll go as high as it needs to go in order for me to go ahead and learn whatever it is that I need to learn. So like that is so, just valid everything that you described about like, hey, it's just gonna keep getting worse.
Yeah, and I love that what you said because I think that was because there were so many times at the start that I literally wanted to walk away from the beginning, but I also knew that this was an initiation that I had to see through, and it was beautiful for me because I actually I completely went deep and reconfigured so many patterns that I was not aware of that this mirror presented to me. And I knew that if I'd walked away, I wouldn't have the karmic cycle wouldn't have the lessons wouldn't have been won. And he was he brought me deep into 59, my deep fear of intimacy, my deep fear of being
Mhm.
seen, my deep fear of actually having an intimate partnership. Like that where all the patterns that were around all of that book got shot like one of my avoidant patterns in the past was actually staying in dynamics that were never going to fulfill my need because I didn't feel that I could experience that. So by that was one of them. Like there was so many, which is why I created Rewire Your Desire. But if anyone's still interested in Rewire, it's there. But I'm not pushing that right now. um, but that was the work, and uh, I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, I knew that had I walked away, I wouldn't have ended the cycle. The cycle wouldn't have ended. And I also knew it was a preparation. Like I had very clear higher self guidance that like my psychic ability is very clear. I have 5710. So that channel is my only channel and I have very strong, direct internal guidance and intuition. So I knew what was going on as well. So that was that. I wanted to say something else, but it's gone out of my head as well. But it doesn't matter. Maybe it will come back. So let's go into desire.
Yeah. As like a raw creative energy because as you were talking, I think that it goes perfectly along with this idea that, you know, um attraction and like that hunger and longing and arousal and like the craving that you can have for a connection or something that you're fantasizing about. I think a lot of times we're taught to think of those things as things that we need to resist or that are bad or that are like low or shameful. But really what it is just like dense life force energy. Like and when I say dense, I mean I don't mean like low. I mean like concentrated, like a seed, right? Like this is a small seed when you feel that inkling of attraction or desire, and then you get to decide what comes from that. Like does it stay as a seed and you just use it for pleasure and then you move on from it, or is it something that you plant and grow into fruit for your life with intentional pursuit of having that desire fulfilled?
It's so funny that you mention this. So this light gets on my nerves with that red skin. I don't know. It's not red anymore, is it? I don't know. Um, I was doing my training the other morning. I've got 30. Where's your 30?
Do I have 30?
Do you have 30? I thought you did. Okay. So I've
No, I
got
have 33.
okay. Okay, sorry about that. I've got Gene Key 30, not in my map, but in my human design chart. It's in my moon. So this desire, this experience of
Oh,
desire,
I do have 30. It's
you do?
unconscious. Mhm.
Right, I thought you did. Yeah, I thought you did. Mm.
Yeah.
Um,
It's my 3 line.
oh, great. Is it in an open center?
I don't know. What center is it in?
Um, 30 at the top of my head. Bear with me.
Oh, it's in the emotional, and yes, it's open.
Okay, so that is one of your
Well, it's undefined.
yeah, undefined, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's white. Okay, so this is a really big thematic for you. So your life is this is huge because this is one of the things that you're really, really here to mutate and learn through trial and error and bring that wisdom to the masses. For me, it's in I can't remember what line it is, but it's in my moon, and this energy has caused me in my like how is it played out for me is I get into extremes. So I can go into extreme passion and zest like, this could be in business, this could be in teaching, like, that, that energy can be very, very, like, beautiful in that way, and, like, but it can also be obsessive as well,
Mhm.
and dark. But I say all of this to say the other day I did my workout, it was 2 mornings ago, and a moth flew in, and it flew to the light. It flew from outside of the window into the light of the room. And it's like 4 in the morning, so it's beautiful energy. And it was a beautiful moth. It was just red. It was all red. And it made me think about desire. And I'll tell you why.
Mhm.
Because to me, when we there's two stories like you could think of, right? A moth who sees the flame from outside and is like trying to get in. And it's trying to get in, but it can't. It can't get to the light. And that is when desire is, I want that man. I want love. I want money. I want sales. You're separated from the desire. You're in separation. That
Mhm.
wanting brings you out. I was thinking about it from the perspective of the law of assumption. But then, like when I saw the moth and it was outside, God, I need to get in. I need to get in. Longing, separation. I'm not in the flame. And then it came in through the window and it got to the light. And it was like, I'm going to give myself. Oh, did you see the? Oh, thank you for the cinematics. I'm going to give myself and surrender myself to the fire and the flame. And I'm going to become one with it. And to me, that was a brilliant analogy for desire. But wait, it gets fucking better. Like this is coming through me at that time. I then go into my dream arc because anytime I see an animal guide, I get an insight that I need to go to the dream arc, which is a gene keys program where each
Okay.
gene key is connected to a specific animal guide. And my journey's been very shamanic. And my journey, I've got 51 is my material way. It's also my purpose. But when I've always had connection to animals. So when I was a teacher, wolf, like for years, wolf season was my hashtag, and I was the wolf. I was literally and, I loved wolves. I could talk about why they were very, very and I didn't know I even had wolf everything around me was wolves, because it was about leading. It was about intuition. It was about knowing what's right for your pack, your team, and also being able to walk alone. And so there was a lot of energy that was like I walked with wolf spirit. Now I didn't know anything about shamanic and power animals at that time, but that was it. And then when I had my awakening, the night that I was about to be attacked again for the second time, and this was the last time, by that guy when I told you, the guy in 2018. And something happened. I went into trance and I felt panther energy come in, and twice actually,
Mhm.
panther energy has come in. There was another experience I had with it years before. I'll tell you about it. But panther energy came in, and that was like wolf went, panther came in. And I just remember this guy what's the word? He was destabilized. He was like he stopped and he lit, and I was like in trance, and he was like, and I remember hearing him say, "You're staring at me like you're going to kill me," and that was it. He just stopped, and it just dissolved. Everything just dissolved. Like no more rage. Everything was calm, and I I get emotional thinking of that because that was when Panther then became my guide. And when I began to wander the earth, I had Panther and Butterfly. So when I went to Thailand, and I was in a dark night of my soul. That was the first moment. This was August, and by January, I'm heavily with this energy. I say all of that to say that morning when I saw the moth. And I had that intuition, that little insight, that analogy of become one with desire. So you're not separated, but you are in unity with it. And this is how you actually energetically align with the desire from wholeness. I looked up the the animal totem, and it was desire, Jinky 30. And let me just read it because I think it's fair to read it to our beautiful listeners now. So,
Yes.
because it was like, how aligned is this? And now we're talking about it again. Do you see the It's the synchronicity that I'm talking about here as well. So, drive. I'm just going to my drive. Moth, and I've got a photo of the moth. Moth 30. So I am Moth. I come to teach you a specific lesson around embracing discomfort. And notice,
Mm,
last few weeks, my theme has been divine discomfort. Also, notice my intention has been, and especially in the mastermind, every day I'm posing the question in the group chat, where am I moving from comfort to growth? So the big theme is also breaking out of comfort zones, having fear goals, meeting them, becoming one with them, so that you can transmute and move quickly. Um, so on the spiritual path, a certain amount of discomfort is required. In your world, you are so used to following and fulfilling your desires and comforts that sometimes you can lose your edge and fall away into distraction or even oblivion. I am a changer. For the next few months, therefore, follow my teaching. Sometimes rise early, I do that anyway, or even in the middle of the night. Push yourself to be awake when your body wishes to sleep. Experiment with fasting, not in an extreme way, but just skipping meals for the occasional day. Plunge your body into cold water or go outside in a rainstorm. Do not be foolhardy and extremist. That's my big, big thing. That's the balance. And all over my chart is balance. Just stretch the edges of your need for comfort. Many realizations will come to you. As for desire, embrace it, but without the need to act on it. Again, watch what happens when you yield to desire and watch what happens when you resist it. Neither path will lead you to freedom, but understanding your desires deeply can lead to freedom. Then you are not a victim of desire, but are free to follow it or not, just as your spirit dictates, which is again this sovereignty, this authority. Desires exist on many levels: physical needs, emotional cravings, and mental addictions. Take courage and explore the field of your desires. Learn from them. See which desires are part of the pure life force
mm,
and which are inherited aberrations or means to distract ourselves from our own suffering. Yeah, which is exactly what you were talking about in that context. You will need deep self compassion for this work. You will also need not to be too tight, but to maintain a sense of perspective and even humor in your own human foolishness. Desires can be sweet and wholesome, or they can be bitter and destructive. My teaching is to learn deeply from them all, and one day see how they all emerge from a single source. The flame to which your desires are drawn. And it came just at that moment. This flame is your own source, law of
mhm,
assumption, the source within you. It is self fulfilling, ever abundant, transcendent, and loving. The journey through desire can be rough, rocky, exhilarating, grief filled, and ecstatic. It is a journey of extremes. Yes, yes, yes. Give yourself to this journey and use it to learn, grow, and mature into a well rounded, wise, and compassionate human being. We moths are not afraid of our desires, for we know that each flame affords us the possibility of surrender and
mm.
rebirth. Drink deeply from the flame of desire and let it clean your soul until you shine out with your own transcendence. So, let's go further into this with what we planned.
That couldn't have been any more perfect.
Right. See, this is the beauty of synchronicity and really being tuned in to the non-physical realm and how you're being guided. Oh, I had such an amazing dream last night as well. So you said here a couple of things. So desire without presence becomes compulsion.
Yeah.
Desire without clarity becomes attachment. Where do you want to go with this right now in this conversation?
Um, we can just talk a little bit for a second about the shift from approaching intimacy or pleasure from an intention of release as opposed to approaching it and giving it direction. So, I know for the majority of my life, if I was going to be intimate with somebody, it was my main thing was just like I just want to be pleasured. I just want to be connected to this, person in this moment, even if it wasn't about like physical pleasure, just the emotional pleasure of being, close and intimate with someone was like I was going after it like a craving, like something like you were saying that's outside of myself, as opposed to approaching it like, hey, I want to take this beautiful energy that's within me and bring it into my material world in an intentional way of like, yes, I want to have full pleasure and I want it to be mind blowing, but not just that. I want it to be evidenced in my life in some type of way. And so again, just that intention setting aspect of it of like, am I really approaching this, just to get that release that you get when you know, climax, or is this a doorway into deeper embodiment of the things that I truly desire, on a grander scale? Because yes, I want pleasure or desire pleasure, but it's so much more than just that I'm approaching, the encounters with.
Yes. Okay, let's move on. We're going to move on to our final question uh, of today. And it's, how does desire become devotion, clarity, and embodied change?
So consistency creates the devotion, right? When we're able to consciously approach our connections on a consistent basis, that's how we can invite that energy of devotion. Because what happens when we're in partnership and we're unconscious, it's very easy to waver. And, "Oh, I wanna be in this connection. Oh, I don't wanna be in this connection. Oh, I wanna be attached to this person. Oh, I don't wanna have anything to do with him," because we never had a solid foundation upon which we mutually agreed that we were gonna devote ourselves to this connection to begin
Mm.
with. So to me, that's where the devotion comes in. Um, Clarity comes in for me, um, through curiosity a lot of times. Like, when desire arises, instead of just acting, take a step back, get in like a sacred pause, and dig deep within yourself and figure out, what is this desire really asking of me? What is this desire here for? Get curious about it and allow it to lend you the information that you need in order to transmute it into some higher form of energy, or you know, something bigger than just a pleasurable moment.
Mm.
And what was the last one? You said devotion, clarity, and
Um, I said that embodied change. Embodied change.
embodied change. Yeah, and so my embodied change came through the identity shift that's attached to this, because instead of being the woman who uses her body as a bargaining chip, like, in that way of, like, I use my body to get what I want, like, I don't know, what's that, use what you got to get what you want, kinda, phrasing or whatever. It's like, I'm definitely, even in tantra, still using what I have to get what I want, but it's not me taking my body and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna sleep with this person in exchange for a connection,"
Mm.
or this, that, and whatever. It's me saying, "Hey, I'm gonna take this divine sacred energy that's burning within me, and I'm gonna use it to intentionally create what it is that I truly desire and will lead to my ultimate fulfillment."
I love that. I really do. And I really am excited about developing my understanding of tantra and my sexual awakening that's on its way, because honestly, my soul is like, this is the thing right now. I'm so excited for that. There is a bit we had planned about a
Yeah.
core teaching. Do you want to go through? Are you ready for to go through that?
I feel like that we've covered quite a lot of it. I don't know if there's anything that's standing out, that you are wanting to touch specifically. I think maybe one important thing is we talked a lot about how this shows up in partnership and what this looks like in partnership, but this is a practice that started for me as a solo thing. I was
Mhm.
practicing tantra alone before I ever tried to bring anybody else into the
Yeah.
situation, because self-pleasure can also be a space of, like, sovereignty, and that for me, like, that's so important, and,
Yes.
when I'm, um, approaching even with myself, still setting that intention, like, this is not just me trying to get off and, get this
Mhm.
off so I can move on to the next thing. This is me creating, a birthing space for the things that I
Mhm.
wanna bring into this material world. I like what you were saying about, desire and the moth and the flame and wanting. I had someone explain to me that you can't want something and have it at the same time. Like, either you
That's it in
believe
a
that
nutshell.
you're the woman that has it, or you are in wanting for it or whatever. So being able to approach sex with myself as, hey, I have all of this raw energy inside of me,
Yes.
and I can take this and this moment of pleasure and I can turn this into whatever I want. That's like the most powerful experience and like what true sexual liberation felt like for me when I start to see, those results of like, hey, this is what I asked for. And even having like a specific mantra that I say or think, hold the intention of whenever I'm climaxing has been just a wondrous thing for me. My personal one is I'm in a timeline of my highest good, my deepest desires, and my ultimate fulfillment. And I love that because it's so open to
Mm.
whatever that outcome looks like. It's not me saying, oh, it's got to look like this. I have to have this specific thing. This is the energy that I want to embody of fulfillment and imagining what that would feel like in that moment. And that pleasure just adds the fire to that emotion, right? Because, manifesting and is just a lot about getting into the frequency of whatever it is that you desire and holding that frequency until you physically see it manifest. And so that being able to channel that pleasure into this is the emotion that I would be in, this is how I would feel, this is how the sensation will be flowing through me and using that pleasure to channel that emotion and that energy and the essence of whatever vision that it is just, a very powerful practice that can be done alone, and my recommendation would be to approach these practices with yourself before you involve anyone else.
Yes. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because a few 10 minutes ago or so, my brain wanted to talk about self-pleasure and the importance of self-pleasure. But you've covered everything that, and great, and I love that. And yeah, how again, if you're remember the other day when I did my ID shift and I did that belief coding on myself, and it was
Mhm.
around the chosen woman. One of the ways that I like to embody the woman who is chosen is by indulging in really intentional and deep self pleasure, because that is part of how I use my life force intentionally to give that energy and that give that to myself, and that radiates outward. So it's that thing again of living like, just because I'm not with somebody in partnership doesn't mean I don't get to choose myself in that sense and experience deep waves and pulses of pleasure, even if I'm giving it to myself. And by doing that, actually embodying because my nervous system feels chosen because I'm giving myself, I'm receiving. I think it's about receiving.
Mhm.
But you've really covered it, and I love that. So, um, there was something here that you've written as well that I really love. Like you've written here, the goal is not to escape desire. The goal is to mature the desire. And mature desire doesn't not just consume, it creates, which is what you've covered. Mature pleasure does not just release, it reveals. Mature sexuality does not disconnect you from your life, it brings you deeper into alignment with it, which is why I
Mhm.
think pleasure practice is a business strategy and a life strategy as well. So the body is the altar, desire is the fire, breath is the bridge, intention is the direction, and devotion is the transmutation. Action is how it becomes real. So that,
Ooh, I'm glad you said that
yeah.
because that's, like, the most important part of this whole episode, and I was about to forget it. Because we talk a lot of times when you hear people talk about tantra, they talk about what happens in the bedroom, and then that's kind of it. But that 1% action, as Jessica always calls it, is so important to any type of manifestation. Like, agree with yourself or with your partner what you're going to do almost to evidence it to yourself, to give yourself evidence. Like, what action am I going to take to show myself that this is already done, that this is
Mm.
already my new reality, that I'm, embodying whatever this thing that I desired was? Like, what action do you take when you leave out of that space? Because skipping that step can mess up the whole magic, because it's
Yeah.
you have to take some type of aligned action with intention that aligns with whatever your intention was when were participating in the act.
And just to clarify as well, so like the 1% action is not always an aligned action, but it's in it, but it is towards the outcome that you want. So just to clarify, so when we say 1% action, that's really to satisfy your saboteur or your logician and to start to create evidence. So the aligned action is when you've taken the action, it's when you receive that specific thing. So for me, it was like, let me give a practical example of recently. So I guess the action was to invite really powerful leaders into the Sovereign CEO podcast to do a series on the energetic identities that allow us to create wealth and aligned business. And I took that one action by reaching out and asking someone. And from there, the aligned actions that flew in was this. I decided to rebrand the Sovereign CEO. I decided to follow. And that was because the magician then took over because my saboteur and logician had actually blocked me. I spoke of this before, and I know it's not related to our episode, but in 2024, I received the exact guidance to create the Sovereign CEO and to create the Generator Projector Alliance. I didn't have the identity or didn't feel ready. So maybe I talked myself out of it. I had a lot of self doubt. I was like, oh, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready. And so I didn't. I didn't take action on the thing. But as soon as and I went through a big identity shift and set of standards, and I've evolved into the woman who can actually build the actual vision, and feel deeply, deeply ready and congruent with what I'm doing, I just made that quick decision and I took action and I opened the Sovereign CEO and all the alignments started happening. Other really high level leaders approached me about doing the thing. I had the aligned action to put the post in visible as fuck group. Beautiful leader stuff. So that's the slight difference
Mhm.
where we take that action, which is aligned in the sense that here's my end result goal and what I'm doing, but it's just a thing. But the aligned action is what actually is where your magician takes over and really elevates timelines. I know it's collapsing timelines, but I like to elevate into a timeline. But time that is where quantum shifts occur. So just to add that in as just a clarity there as well,
I
because
love that.
people can take lots of fucking action, but it's not
Mhm.
actually going to collapse anything or create things rapid quantum shifts. It's just going to be you being busy and willful and forcing it. And I guess when you find yourself doing loads of action, like I was doing with the Divine Femme, I was producing a lot of that content, and but it wasn't time, and I didn't recognize that the time for that wasn't now. What was now was the sovereignty, and I actually had 2 things. As a projector, I was invited twice into the sovereign CEO realm, one through that client back in thing, and one through an old client coming towards me about branding, positioning, one with Silicon Valley, and Gene Keys and alignment and founders. And it was like, and I kept having like my speak, like the tremor of truth was, this is the way, this is your invitation, this is the way. That's the aligned path for you right now. But I was like, oh no, because I've downloaded this thing. But now I know this is now. This is the body of work that's leading to the next. So the 54, I know this is getting a little bit unclear, but the 54 energy knows it receives and then it seeds and takes and starts the preparation. So 24, I got that seed for sovereign. Now is the time. I've received that in 25, divine femme. This is the process towards that. So
Mm.
anyway, that's just human design, gene keys, and alignment. So you know where to find me if you want to align your life with your gene keys and your business. Okay. So thank you so much. Today was a beautiful episode.
Just really quick since we're sharing offers,
Yeah.
the love, attachment, and frequency intensive that I offer has a portion of it where we can audit some of your behaviors and create a plan for you, like the one that I walked through today with my inner child in order to get to what the
Mm,
root of my actual issue was, and then create a plan for um, being present with my inner child and communicating to my partner from my present day adult self. So that is one of the things that I offer in that intensive. It is very needs based and it molds to you. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me as well.
beautiful. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you put that out. Okay. Right. So we're going to wrap up. If there are any questions, we'd love you to put them in the comments so that we can, continue the conversation. And we look forward to a new series beginning next week, but we'll reveal it then. Bye.